I used to believe my life was warm and steady, built on routines I trusted. Every morning I woke beside Lucas and thought, this is safety. He would smile and say, we're good, aren't we? And I always answered, we are. I worked hard, dreamed quietly, and leaned on the people I loved. I was ambitious, yes, but I needed reassurance. I needed loyalty. I believed love meant staying, choosing, protecting. Back then, I thought trust was simple, something you gave once and kept forever. That belief shaped every decision I made without hesitation or doubt at all. Then there. Nora had been my best friend for years, the sister I chose. She laughed loudly, hugged tightly, and said, I'll always be on your side. I never questioned her. When the three of us shared dinners, I felt complete. Lucas talked about future apartments and I teased, only if you do the dishes. He laughed and promised, I will. We planned trips, birthdays, and quiet Sundays. Sometimes Nora went silent or Lucas paused too long, but I brushed it off, calling myself dramatic. I trusted my instincts to protect me from pain, and believed love always warned you first. Clearly. Lucas made my world feel anchored. He would say, you don't need to worry so much, and I'd answer, I know, but I care. He kissed my forehead like a promise. With him I softened. I let myself depend on someone else's strength. I told myself it was partnership, not weakness. At work I pushed forward, chasing growth, but at home, I rested inside his certainty. I believed balance meant trusting others to hold you when tired. I never imagined that support could disappear overnight without warning or turn into something sharp and cruel behind familiar smiles I trusted blindly. There were small moments I ignored. Nora would cancel suddenly, saying, I'm just tired. And Lucas avoided my eyes. When I asked, is everything okay? He answered too quickly, of course. I told myself love didn't need interrogation. One night, silence stretched between us and my chest tightened. I laughed it away, saying, I'm overthinking again. Nora squeezed my hand and smiled. That smile felt strange, but I chose comfort over questions every time. I was afraid that doubt might destroy what I needed most, so I buried it beneath routine and hoped, telling myself stability mattered more than truth. That night I lay beside Lucas, listening to his breathing, feeling safe. I thought tomorrow will be better. I planned conversations, vacations, a future that felt solid. I believed Nora would always protect me, and Lucas would never lie. Before sleep claimed me, I whispered, I'm lucky. He murmured, you are. I smiled in the dark, unaware that trust was already cracking beneath me, that the life I believed in was quietly preparing to collapse. I did not know love was already turning its back on me, while I held on tightly to promises that would soon break me completely. I found the truth by accident, the kind that doesn't knock but slips inside quietly. Lucas's phone lit up on the counter while he showered. Nora's name glowed. A message preview read, last night wasn't a mistake. My heart stopped. I whispered, no, and my hands shook. I told myself, you're misunderstanding. But the phone buzzed again. We have to be careful. I stared at the screen and felt something cold crawl up my spine. I scrolled, breath-breaking. Nora wrote, she trusts us. Lucas replied, I'll handle her. I whispered, handle me. Memories slammed into me. We're forever, he once said. I'd never hurt you, Nora promised. I laughed then, a sharp sound, and said, I was blind. My chest burned. I wanted to throw the phone, scream, disappear. Instead, I waited, counting seconds, listening to water run. When Lucas stepped out, I held up the phone. Explain, I said. He froze. Why are you snooping? He snapped. I asked, is this real? He sighed and said, you're overreacting. Nora arrived minutes later, confused on purpose. What's wrong? She asked. I said, you tell me. She frowned. You're imagining things. My voice broke. Both of you lied. Lucas crossed his arms. It just happened, he said. It meant nothing. Nora whispered, I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed again. You already did. My hands trembled as I said, how long? Lucas said, does it matter? That crushed me. I said, yes. I mattered. Nora looked away. You're being dramatic, she muttered. I begged, which still shames me. Please tell me the truth. Lucas rubbed his face. You wouldn't understand. Nora added, we didn't plan it. I shouted, you planned the lies. Silence followed. Lucas said, bored. Let's not make this ugly. That was when something broke. I realized my pain was inconvenient, not important. I stepped back and said quietly, I trusted you. Lucas replied, you'll get over it. Nora said nothing. My ears rang. I nodded slowly. I see. I walked to the door. Lucas called, don't be like this. I didn't answer. Each step felt heavy, but my chest felt empty, like a door closing inside me forever. Outside, I breathed night air and whispered, it's over. My phone buzzed with Nora's message. Can we talk later? I deleted it. I told myself, something died tonight. I also felt heat under the grief, unfamiliar and alive. As I walked away, I knew I would never be the same again. I replayed every smile, every promise, hearing them twist into lies. We're a team, Lucas said before. Always, Nora agreed. I whispered, not anymore. My hands stopped shaking. In their place was anger, sharp and steady. I didn't know what I would do yet, only that I wouldn't disappear. I would remember this moment, this break, and let it change me. I walked until my legs hurt. I said out loud, I won't beg again. The city stayed silent. I felt grief, yes, but also resolve forming. I didn't understand it yet, but something inside me was waking up. And it was angry, alert, and done believing empty words. I looked back once, then whispered, goodbye. Not to them, but to the woman I was. My future felt uncertain, but it was mine. I kept walking, knowing the break had changed me forever. I wiped my tears and said, this isn't the end. My voice sounded stronger. Pain followed me, but fear didn't. Whatever came next, I would face it awake, not blind, not trusting lies ever again. I stepped forward as night swallowed my past completely. I locked my door and told myself, just breathe. The room answered with silence. I spoke anyway. You didn't imagine it. I sat on the floor and said, they chose each other. My voice sounded strange. I replayed Lucas saying, you're my future, and Nora laughing, I'd never betray you. I covered my ears and whispered, stop. The days blurred. Morning asked nothing. Night offered no rest. I talked to empty walls asking, why wasn't I enough? No one answered. I stared at my phone waiting for regret that never came. At work my coworker Mia asked, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. She frowned. You don't look fine. I shrugged. I'm just tired. She said, take care of yourself. I nodded and returned to my desk. Inside I screamed, they lied to me. I remembered Nora watching me closely, correcting my stories, smiling too tight. I remembered Lucas interrupting me, saying, you're overthinking. I said out loud, you trained me to doubt myself. My chest ached. Anger rose, then collapsed into grief. I cooked meals I didn't eat. I set alarms I ignored. I argued with ghosts. How long? I asked the air. Did you laugh about me? I answered myself, yes. I felt stupid, exposed. I said, I trusted you. I imagined Lucas replying, you should have known. I shook my head. No. Love isn't suspicion. Tears came fast. I wiped them and said, I miss who I was. My reflection looked smaller. I didn't recognize her anymore. Another day passed. Mia said, you're spacing out. I replied, I'll catch up. She lowered her voice. Did something happen? I hesitated. Everything happened. She squeezed my arm. You don't have to explain. I swallowed and said, thank you. Back home I paced and muttered, I should confront them. I imagined their faces calm and cold. My knees weakened. I whispered, I can't survive that again. The thought alone felt like drowning. I lay on my bed and counted breaths. 1, I said. 2. I remembered Nora's jealousy disguised as concern. Are you sure you can handle that job? She asked before. I remembered Lucas's pride. I don't need help, he said. I laughed bitterly. You needed my silence. Rage flared, then faded. I felt empty. I said, I'm breaking. Saying it helped a little. That night I stood by the window and told myself, you're still here. I pressed my hand to my chest. You survived today. I thought about calling them, then shook my head. Not yet. I made a promise, quiet and firm. I will survive first. I breathed in and said, I choose myself. The room stayed silent, but I felt something steady beneath the pain. I turned off the light and rested, knowing healing would come slowly if I allowed it. I met Evan on a quiet afternoon when I least wanted company. I sat with a coffee I wasn't drinking, staring at nothing. He said, "You look like someone who's listening to noise no one else hears." I frowned. "I'm fine." He nodded. People who are fine don't repeat that sentence. I should have walked away. Instead I said, "What do you want?" He replied, "Nothing. Just conversation." His voice held no pity, no curiosity sharpened into judgment. That alone made me stay. We talked slowly, carefully. He asked, "Do you miss them or the version of yourself you were with them?" The question landed hard. I answered, "I don't know." He smiled faintly. "That means you're thinking." I snapped, "Thinking doesn't fix anything." He said, "No, but it decides what you won't break for again." I watched steam rise from his cup and whispered, "They made me feel small." He replied, "You let them." I stiffened. He added calmly, "That's not blame. That's power." I crossed my arms. "So what, I wait? I forgive." He shook his head. "I never said that." I asked, "Then what?" He said, "You observe. You breathe. You become steady." I laughed bitterly. "That sounds weak." He leaned back and said, "Silence is only weak when you're afraid of what you'll hear." I swallowed. "They hurt me." He nodded. "Pain doesn't demand noise. It demands understanding." No one had ever spoken to me like that. Not careful. Not cruel. Just clear. I tested him. "What if I want revenge?" He answered, "Then ask yourself why." I said, "Because they deserve it." He replied, "Deserve is a heavy word. Carry it only if you must." I stared at him. "You're saying do nothing." He said, "I'm saying do less better." That unsettled me. "You don't know what they did." He met my eyes. "I know what betrayal looks like." I asked quietly, "And?" He said, "It ends fastest when you stop letting it lead." I felt something loosen in my chest. "So control isn't shouting?" I asked. He smiled slightly. "Control is choosing your next step before emotion chooses it for you." I nodded slowly. "I don't want to beg anymore." He said, "Then don't." I whispered, "I don't want to be weak." He replied, "Then stop proving it to people who benefit from it." We sat in silence. It didn't feel empty. It felt steady. When I stood to leave, he said, "You're not broken." I paused. "You don't know that." He answered, "Broken people don't ask how to survive. They surrender." I felt warmth spread through my chest, small but real. I said, "Thank you." He replied, "For what?" I thought, then said, "For not judging me." He nodded once. As I walked away, I promised myself something quietly and firmly. I would be patient. I would be aware. And I would never be powerless again. I rebuilt myself quietly. At work, Mia said, "You're early." I answered, "I need structure." She smiled. "You seem focused." I replied, "I'm learning." Each task finished felt like a brick laid back into place. I told myself, slow is fine. I stopped checking my phone every minute. Silence no longer scared me. It steadied me. I went to the gym after work. I told the trainer, "Don't go easy." He asked, "Bad breakup?" I said, "Bad lesson." He nodded. Then we built strength. Each ache reminded me I was alive. I watched my posture change. I whispered, "Stand straight." My body listened before my heart did. At lunch, I overheard Lucas bragging. "She won't notice," he said. Nora laughed too loud. "Relax." I felt nothing. I noted the arrogance, the carelessness. I told myself, information matters. I didn't confront them. I observed. Power felt quiet, not loud, and it stayed with me. Mia asked, "You okay?" I said, "Better." She raised a brow. "Really?" I nodded. "I'm learning boundaries." She smiled. "Good." That word warmed me. I realized I didn't need to explain my pain to earn respect. I just needed consistency. At home, I planned meals, set alarms, tracked goals. I told myself, discipline is kindness. I slept earlier. I woke clearer. When memories surfaced, I said, later. They lost their grip. Control grew through repetition, not emotion. I saw Nora snap at someone. Don't question me, she said. Lucas smirked. I've got this. I almost laughed. Pride blinded him. Recklessness guided her. I wrote it down mentally. Patterns repeat. I reminded myself. Evan texted. How are you? I replied, stable. He answered, good base. I smiled. I didn't overshare. I didn't ask for validation. I simply continued. That felt new. Each small win mattered. A compliment from my manager. A longer run. A calm breath when anger rose. I told myself, progress counts. I was no longer reacting. I was choosing. I passed Lucas in the hallway. He said, you've been quiet. I replied, busy. He scoffed. Don't be dramatic. I smiled politely. Inside I said, you no longer define me. That silence unsettled him. I noticed. Nora cornered me later. Are you mad? She asked. I said, no. She narrowed her eyes. You're different. I answered, growth does that. She laughed nervously. I walked away first. At night I reviewed my day like strategy. What worked? I asked. What didn't? I adjusted. I felt sharper. Less emotional. More deliberate. I wasn't healed. I was preparing. I looked in the mirror and said, you survived. My reflection didn't argue. I added, you're learning. I believed it. The victim in me was fading. The strategist was forming. I promised myself, no more impulsive moves. I repeated it. I let emotions pass without acting. When sadness came, I rested. When anger came, I trained. I felt balanced, not numb. One afternoon, Mia said, you seem confident. I replied, I'm practicing. She smiled. It shows. I held that quietly, letting it root instead of rush. I knew confrontation would come later. Not now. Now was survival. I whispered, be patient. For the first time, patience felt powerful. I wasn't weak anymore. I was building leverage. I ended the week stronger. I said, keep going. No audience. No approval. Just progress. The pain still existed, but it no longer controlled me. I was standing again quietly on my own terms. I chose discipline over chaos, awareness over impulse, and myself over regret. That choice marked the true beginning of my transformation. I felt ready for whatever came next. Without fear anymore. Mia leaned closer and whispered, you should check the project logs. I asked why. She said, because your name is missing. My stomach tightened. Missing where? She replied, on the client report Lucas submitted. I stared at the screen and said, that was my work. She nodded. I know. Another coworker, James, added quietly, he's been doing that for months. I whispered, how much? James said, enough to matter. I went home shaking. I opened old files and said out loud, stay calm. Numbers didn't lie. Transfers appeared I never approved. Shared account, I muttered. I checked dates. You used it, I said to the empty room. Anger burned hot. I laughed once and said, so this is who you are. The betrayal felt deeper, colder, but clearer. The next day, Nora's voice floated from the hallway. People change, she said. Someone laughed. She wasn't that impressive anyway. My chest tightened. I stepped closer. Nora continued, I'm more reliable. I felt heat rush to my face. I didn't interrupt. I listened. Power gathered in silence. I thought, you're replacing me. The realization hurt, then hardened. Later, James said, she's been asking about your contacts. I asked, what did you tell her? He replied, nothing. Mia added, she's reckless. I nodded. Good. That surprised me. I meant it. Recklessness leaves trails. Pride blinds. I started seeing patterns instead of pain. I met Evan that evening. He asked, what did you learn? I said, they think I'm invisible. He replied, that's useful. I frowned. How? He said, people expose themselves when they're careless. I told him about the money, the credit stolen. He listened. Then he said, truth is a weapon. I asked, when do I use it? He answered, when patience sharpens it. I paced and said, I want to confront them. Evan replied, and lose control? I stopped. No, he continued. Let them underestimate you. I breathed out. They already do. He smiled faintly. Exactly. That settled something inside me. I wasn't powerless. I was unseen. There was a difference. At work, my manager said, we need clarity on this project. I said, I can provide records. He nodded. Please do. Lucas avoided my eyes. I felt calm. I thought, you don't know what I know. That knowledge steadied me. Nora messaged, why are people distant? I didn't reply. I watched instead. She pushed harder. Lucas grew defensive. Everyone's against me. He snapped to someone. I noted it. Stress cracks masks. I smiled to myself and whispered, keep talking. Evan texted, any doubts? I answered, no, he replied, good. I realized I wasn't chasing revenge. I was collecting truth. Each fact fit like a puzzle piece. Each lie weakened them. That night I reviewed everything and said, I see you. Anger still lived in me, but it no longer ruled me. Understanding replaced chaos. I knew where they were careless, where they were arrogant, where they were blind, and they still thought I was broken. I closed my laptop and said, you made a mistake. Not to myself. To them. I felt steady, prepared. The truth sat quietly in my hands, sharp and ready. I smiled and whispered, you have no idea how much power you gave me. I sent the email without a name, without emotion. I whispered, be precise. I attached files, dates, signatures. My finger hovered. I said, do it. I clicked send. The room stayed quiet, but my heart didn't. I waited. I told myself, this is not anger. This is truth. At work, James rushed over. Have you seen Lucas? He asked. I said, no. He lowered his voice. Compliance called him in. I paused. Why? James shrugged. Someone reported irregularities. I nodded slowly. Inside, I said, it started. Hours later, whispers spread. His report doesn't match, someone said. Another replied, money issues. Lucas stormed past me and snapped, do you know anything about this? I met his eyes and said, should I? He scoffed. Don't play games. I answered, I don't. He paced, voice tight. People are trying to ruin me. I said calmly, that sounds stressful. He stared. You're enjoying this. I replied, I'm working. His hands shook. Who did this? I shrugged. Maybe someone noticed. He laughed once, sharp. You think you're smarter than me? I said, I think details matter. By evening, his confidence cracked. I heard him on the phone. It's a misunderstanding, he said. Silence. I can explain. More silence. He hung up and whispered, this can't be happening. I felt a rush, then guilt. I told myself, control doesn't mean cruelty. Mia texted, did you hear? I replied, I heard. She wrote, they're auditing everything. I said, good. My chest tightened. I wasn't celebrating. I was steady. I repeated, you chose this, not as blame but fact. That night Evan asked, how do you feel? I said, alert. He replied, that's power. I admitted, I'm scared. He said, good. Fear keeps you sharp. I breathed out. I didn't yell. He smiled. You acted. Lucas avoided me the next day. When he spoke, his voice wavered. Someone set me up. I answered, investigations find truth. He snapped, you sound smug. I said quietly, I sound calm. That silence hurt him more than anger. I went home and sat with the feeling. Revenge wasn't loud. It was exact. I said, this is dangerous. My hands trembled. I steadied them. No more mistakes. The shift was real. I wasn't chasing them anymore. I was leading the pace. I whispered, one move at a time. The thrill scared me, but it also focused me. Lucas was unraveling and he didn't know why. That was the risk. That was the power. I chose to hold it carefully, knowing the game had begun. I looked at my phone and didn't check messages. I said, stay disciplined. The rush faded into clarity. This wasn't about hurting him. It was about reclaiming myself. I felt pain, yes, but it no longer ruled me. For the first time, I was acting with intention, not instinct. I closed my eyes and said, "You underestimated me." My voice didn't shake. The danger was real, but so was my resolve. I understood now. Revenge wasn't a scream. It was a quiet decision to move forward without mercy for lies. I stood up steady, aware the balance had shifted. This was only the beginning, and I was ready to continue, careful and awake, knowing every step from here on would be chosen. I would not look back again. Ever. I planned the meeting like a rehearsal. I told myself, stay calm. The room filled with voices. Nora smiled and said, "We should clear the air." I replied, "I agree." She glanced around and added, "Honesty matters." I said, "Then let's start." She spoke quickly. "I never spread rumors." I asked, "Do screenshots lie?" Gasps followed. She said, "Those are fake." I answered, "Timestamps aren't." She laughed. "You're twisting things." I said, "Read them aloud." Silence pressed. Someone muttered, "That's your number." Nora snapped, "You're attacking me." I said, "I'm answering you." She pointed, "You're obsessed." I replied, "You're exposed." A woman beside her whispered, "You told me she quit." I said, "I didn't." Nora said, "You misunderstood." I asked, "All of you?" Her ally Mark stepped forward. "I helped organize messages," he said. I asked why. He shrugged. She asked. Nora hissed, "Stop." I said, "Please continue." Mark added, "We thought it'd push you out." The room shifted away from her. Nora pleaded, "I was protecting us." I asked, "From what?" She said, "From losing status." I replied, "So you lied." She cried, "Everyone does." I said, "Not like this." My chest tightened. I thought guilt is quieter than rage. Lucas watched me. He said, "This feels staged." I met his stare. Truth often does. He frowned. "You knew." I answered, "I listened." He said, "You're behind this." I smiled. "You have no proof." His confidence thinned into fear. People spoke over her now. "You used me." "You promised." "You blamed her." Nora shook. "I'm sorry." I said, "Say it to them." She whispered apologies. I felt relief, then a sting. I asked myself, how much is enough? After Lucas cornered me. "You're different," he said. I replied, "I learned." He warned, "Careful." I said, "Always." He searched my face and found nothing. As I left, I told myself truth didn't break her. It revealed her. Masks don't fall loudly. They slip. I paused in the hall. Was it worth it? I asked myself. Evan texted, "Breathe." I typed, "It's done." He replied, "For now." I said aloud, "I won't hide." Lucas followed. "You planned this," he said. I answered, "I prepared." He snapped, "You're enjoying it." I said, "I'm ending it." He scoffed, "You think you've won." I replied, "I think you're scared." He whispered, "You're dangerous." I said, "I'm honest." Mark lingered nearby. "I didn't mean harm," he said. I asked, "Then why help?" He said, "It felt easy." I nodded. "That's the problem." He lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry." I answered, "Learn." Nora approached, shaking. "Please talk," she begged. I said, "Not alone." She cried, "You ruined me." I replied, "You revealed yourself." She said, "I trusted you." I answered, "You used me." She reached out. I stepped back. This ends here. Inside, my thoughts raced. Satisfaction warmed me, then guilt cooled it. I asked myself, how far will I go? I answered, as far as truth requires. The room felt lighter without lies. Lucas muttered, "People are watching you." I said, "Good." He said, "You'll slip." I replied, "I'm steady." He laughed nervously. "This isn't over." I said, "It never was." When I finally left, fear trailed them, not me. I breathed and said, "Masks fall when light stays." I walked forward, knowing influence doesn't shout. It waits patient while facades crumble. I promised myself silence would be my shield. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tonight brought clarity. I smiled once, small and real, accepting the weight of choice and the calm that followed truth. I will not retreat again. This is my beginning. Now. I heard the footsteps before I saw them. My heart skipped. Lucas. I whispered. No answer. Nora. My voice shook. The hallway was empty, yet I felt eyes on me. I spun around. A shadow moved. I ducked instinctively. Stop. I shouted. Silence. Thought you could escape? Lucas's voice came from behind a corner. I swallowed. I'm not running, I said, trying to sound steady. My hands trembled. He laughed. You're cornered. I whispered. No, I'm not. A figure stepped forward. Stay calm, said Mia. Relief surged. You. I gasped. She nodded. Follow me. I ran. Where? I asked. Safe for now, she said. Then what? I panted. Then you keep moving. I glanced back. Lucas and Nora emerged. She's here. Nora yelled. I ducked into an alley. You planned this? I asked Mia. She shook her head. I'm just helping you live. I frowned. Live. Lucas's voice echoed. You think you're smart. I whispered. I have to be. My mind raced. What do we do? I asked Mia. Think fast, she said. I scanned the surroundings. We can't go left, they'll trap us. She agreed. Then right through the gate. I sprinted. My legs burned. Are they following? I asked. She checked behind. A few steps, stay quiet. I nodded, heart hammering. I whispered. I've never been this afraid. She said softly. Fear sharpens you. I laughed nervously. Easy for you to say. We ducked into a side street. I leaned against a wall, catching my breath. They'll find another way, I said. Mia shook her head. Not if we stay ahead. I realized she was right. I've changed, I murmured. I'm not helpless anymore. Suddenly a shout. There she is. I froze. Mia grabbed my arm. Move. I ran, weaving between parked cars. My thoughts raced. Every decision mattered. One wrong step, one glance, and it could end. I whispered. I'm alive. I'm alive. We paused in an abandoned courtyard. I slumped against a wall. That was too close, I said. Mia nodded. It's part of the game now. Survival matters as much as revenge. I took a deep breath. I've come so far, yet it's still dangerous. I closed my eyes, feeling the adrenaline fade. I thought I was strong, I said. Mia smiled faintly. You are, but strength without caution is useless. I whispered. I've learned. A siren wailed in the distance. I realized Lucas and Nora weren't just threats, they were desperate. Their arrogance almost killed me. I said aloud. I can't underestimate them again. Mia placed a hand on my shoulder. You survived. That counts. I nodded. It counts, but it scares me. She said quietly. Good. Fear keeps you alert. I smiled grimly. I'll remember that. I looked at the dark streets, my chest still heaving. This isn't over, I said softly. No, Mia agreed. But now you know your limits. And your power. I felt the weight of it. Danger, fear, survival, and control, all mixed together. I whispered. I'll survive. I have to. The night wrapped around us. I knew from now on every move mattered. Every ally, every step, every breath could be the difference between life and death. I said to myself, I'm ready. And I truly believed it. I watched the news alert flash across my screen. Lucas Holdings files for bankruptcy, the anchor said. I whispered. Finally. My chest tightened, not with joy but with a strange weight. Evan's message pinged. Are you watching? I typed I am. He called. You okay? I said. I feel balanced and sad. He replied, good. Sadness shows you still have conscience. I frowned. Does it make me weak? He chuckled softly. No. It keeps you human. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I scrolled through the reports. Lucas's face appeared everywhere. Furrowed brow, sweaty, flustered. Headlines screamed, investor outrage. CEO missteps cost millions. I muttered. Pride destroys faster than lies. Nora's posts popped up. each one more desperate than the last. Friends, I whispered. No one responded. Comments mocked, laughed, and abandoned. Her carefully woven social network dissolved silently. I leaned back. So fragile. Evan asked, "Do you want this?" I paused. I didn't make it happen, but I didn't stop it either. He said, "That's the art of patience. Karma works when you wait." I typed patience is power. Later, Lucas's assistant called him, panicked. "The investors want explanations." Lucas barked, "I don't care, fix it." I whispered, "You're trapped." His arrogance had blinded him. He couldn't see the cracks forming until they split him open. I walked past the cafe window. A man murmured, "That's Lucas? Isn't he bankrupt?" I whispered, "He is." Another replied, "And Nora?" I smiled faintly. "Collapsed completely." Evan asked, "Feeling vindictive?" I shook my head. "No. Clear." He paused. "Clear." I said, "I see the balance. Actions have consequences. I'm not celebrating, just watching." A tweet popped up. "Lucas's empire crumbles. Who knew arrogance could be so expensive?" I typed silently, no one needed to do this. Life did it alone. The irony made me both smile and ache. Nora called her assistant. "People are talking. Help me." The assistant stammered. "I can't." I whispered. "Finally, truth works quietly." Evan said, "This is the hardest part. Watching karma, not controlling it." I leaned back. It feels empty and full at the same time. I remembered our past conversations. He said, "Revenge gives satisfaction. Justice gives clarity." I realized I had clarity now. Sadness, yes. Satisfaction, yes. But also understanding that power wasn't just what I could do. It was patience and restraint. Lucas's speeches were recorded and mocked online. "I knew what I was doing," he yelled. "I trusted the wrong people." I whispered, "No, you trusted yourself too much." Nora's social invitations stopped. People avoided her, whispered. "Remember her lies," one said. I felt a pang. "Collateral damage of arrogance," I murmured. Called Evan. "It's over, isn't it?" He said, "For now. But remember, the lesson matters more than their ruin." I smiled faintly. "I've learned. Patience, balance, waiting." The sun set. I sat quietly watching the world move. Nothing I did created this, it was their choices. And I understood finally. Karma didn't rush, but when it came, it struck perfectly. I whispered to myself, "Balance is power. Revenge is nothing without restraint." My chest loosened. I felt the quiet peace of knowing the game was not mine alone. It was life unfolding as it should. I looked away from the screen. "Justice doesn't yell," I said softly. "It waits and it teaches." Tonight I understood that fully. My hands rested on the table, calm, steady, ready for whatever came next. I walked into the room, calm, measured. Lucas froze. You're here," he stammered. I said, "Yes. It's time we speak." Nora flinched, clutching her bag. "Please, I cut her off. "Save it. I already know everything." Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't mean," I raised a finger. "Don't. Stop making excuses." His pride faltered, eyes darting. "We can fix this," he said, voice tight. I shook my head. "No. There is nothing to fix." Nora whispered. "I'm sorry. I really am." I replied. "Sorry doesn't change what you did." Her eyes welled with tears. "I never thought it would go this far." I said, "You didn't think at all." Lucas's voice rose. "You're being cruel." I said softly, "No. I'm being honest." He flinched, disbelief written across his face. "After everything, this is how you repay us?" I leaned forward slightly. "I'm not repaying. I'm releasing myself." Nora's shoulders shook. "Please give me a chance to explain." I cut her short. "Your explanations are stories for yourself. I don't need them." Lucas scoffed. "You're heartless." I replied. "I've been heartless to myself for too long. Not anymore." He stepped closer. "You'll regret this." I met his gaze. "I don't need revenge. That was never my goal." His jaw tightened. "Then what?" "Humiliation." I said, "No. Freedom." That's what you're witnessing. Nora sniffled. You're leaving me nothing. I smiled faintly. I'm leaving you exactly what you earned. Your own choices. Lucas's fists clenched. You think you're better than us? I said. I think I'm finally me. That's enough. They looked at each other, panic and shame mingled. We were friends, Nora whispered. I nodded once. Once. But friendship requires trust and you broke it. Lucas muttered. You'll never forgive. I said. I forgave myself the moment I walked away. Silence hung. My chest was light, steady. Is that all? I asked. Nora's voice trembled. Yes, for now. I nodded. Then this ends here. Lucas's eyes searched mine. You're leaving nothing for us? I replied. Nothing. I needed only me. Nora tried one last plea. Please don't go like this. I answered softly. I go exactly like I must. Goodbye, Nora. Goodbye, Lucas. They swallowed, unable to respond. I turned. My steps echoed as I left the room. Behind me their world was silent, fractured. I felt the weight lift, lightness in its place. For the first time I breathed without guilt, without fear. Evan's text pinged. All done? I typed yes. Freedom. I paused, letting the word settle. Not revenge. Not cruelty. Just release. I smiled faintly. Outside the air was cool against my face. I whispered to myself, I'm free. No chains, no manipulations, no lies. Only me. The past behind, the future waiting. I had chosen justice, chosen myself, and it was enough. I walked on, steady and unafraid, finally whole. I stepped onto the balcony, feeling the morning air brush my face. It's quiet. I whispered to no one, yet it felt right to speak. Evan's message pinged. How's the new chapter? I typed back slowly, peaceful. I'm learning to breathe again. I sipped my coffee, eyes on the city below. Trust must be earned, not assumed. I murmured. I remembered Lucas, Nora, the lies, the betrayals. I didn't hate them anymore. Their choices had already punished themselves. I smiled faintly, surprising myself. A neighbor waved from across the street. Good morning. I returned the greeting warmly. Good morning. It was simple, ordinary, yet it felt extraordinary. I realized small gestures could be powerful when they came from a grounded place. I thought of Evan and the lessons he shared. Patience, clarity, control, I whispered. I understand now. Power isn't revenge. It's knowing your own value. My chest felt light, unburdened. A soft laugh escaped me as I checked my phone. Messages from friends I had neglected reached out. Want to grab lunch? One asked. I typed yes, I'd love that. Connection, real connection, didn't have to be forced. It was a choice, not a dependency. I leaned against the railing, letting sunlight warm my face. Self-respect is priceless, I said aloud. I thought of all the times I had compromised for love, for friendship, for loyalty. No more. I could honor myself first without guilt. The city hummed below, life moving without my control, yet I felt ready to move within it. I imagined a new project, a new goal, one built on my terms. I can do this, I whispered. Confidence didn't need to roar. It could whisper and still be heard. A memory surfaced of Lucas's smirk, Nora's false concern. I chuckled softly. Funny, isn't it? How powerless I once felt. I didn't feel bitterness, only awareness. Each step forward was mine, unclaimed by others. Evan called. Are you smiling? He asked, voice calm. I replied, yes. For the first time, truly for me. I didn't need to explain. He understood. I walked back inside, leaving the balcony empty behind me. The past was closed, silent. My life awaited, full of choices and possibilities. I could build, create, love, and protect myself. I looked in the mirror and met my own eyes. This is real, I whispered. The curve of my lips was authentic, born from clarity, patience, and strength. Not for anyone else, not for revenge, not for approval, just me. The sunlight caught my reflection. I smiled again, letting it linger. This time, the smile belonged entirely to me. Peaceful, free, whole.